Right, I'm at the farming conference, and one of the speakers earlier today was this gentleman who is
Andrew Gallais,
who will be known to many people as a prominent farmer. He actually has got just over 200 cattle. I didn't realise it was that small an enterprise in an international scale, because they talk about herds of thousands now, don't they, in different places?
Yes, they do.
Now, you were talking about succession, for example, one of the issues that came up in your talk. Is your farm secure? Are there people who will follow on?
That's a very good question. So my wife and I are blessed with 4 sons.
Right.
One of them in particular helps a lot on the farm at weekend, but they've all got professional local jobs. And I think it's unlikely that they will take over in a full-time capacity, because frankly, there's a huge amount of work involved, and long hours. And the second thing is that it's going to be a relatively small enterprise.
Right.
You know, you're asking, with the operational costs in the island, 225 cows is just about the minimum you're going to need in the future.
That's right.
The way things are going.
It worries me. I mean, I was a self-employed one-off individual doing design. The question never arrives for people like that they get a subsidy from government to carry on. But for some reason, farming has got this. It's got the ear of governments around the world that somehow or other they've got to be supported to produce a product which everybody needs.
Well, it's not just about producing the product. It's about managing and looking after the countryside.
Right.
And this is the bit that was going to be really interesting last of all this afternoon, when John Vautier presents his talk. It came out very well with a lady who spoke recently about cover crops, and particularly that's an area where there's significant benefits to soil health and soil structure.
Indeed.
And that's being embraced hugely. I put a picture of that up. That's being embraced hugely in the island.
Right.
But you don't see this because you're not, it needs a bit of a trained eye.
I was surprised you had to tell the farmers, because farmers have known that for 1,000 years. They've known all about the bees and all the rest of it. They know that that's valuable.
Well, we're doing it. We're still doing it.
You don't
but
need
much better.
I mean, obviously, there's always a way you can improve what you're doing.
Yeah.
But to me, it was a bit scientific the way she was presenting it. It was interesting. There's no doubt about it. It was interesting. But why aren't farmers leading the pack on this? Why are environmental issues and sustainability? They ought to be out there pushing.
Well, let's put it this way: we are pushing and pushing. Listen to what was said, because the relationship with Trinity AgTech, they didn't come to us. We went to them,
really?
And we went through a very extensive selection process before we chose them. So give us a bit of credit. We don't just sit around for someone just lobbing lots of money at us just for the sake of it.
Well, it's not lots of money, that's fairly obvious, but there used to be, when I first came to Jersey, there was quite an intensive agricultural training scheme here, and the centre up at Trinity.
Howard Davis Farm.
Yeah. Howard Davis Farm, and it was good. I mean, you could go up there, you could be on the tomato tasting panel. It would involve the general public. And
how many farmers were there then?
Farmers, I don't know, but there were...
Yeah.
Well, I came here in the 60s, so...
Yeah, so...
It was still a viable industry then.
Well, viable in what respect? Because there were no costing stuff.
No.
Not like they're done now.
But the farmers still had all these growing orders, stop growing orders.
It was a lifestyle.
That's right, it was. And it was the remnants of the Victorian age.
Yes.
But now that is well and truly dead. I mean, last year's conference here, they had this huge equipment parked here. It was a bloody great tractor with a bloody great thing behind it.
Yeah.
Well, that's not what Jersey was all about.
Yes, I know, but are we going to look at this little gadget? You wouldn't have had one of those when you first came. You would have had your little brownie box camera.
Indeed.
And it wouldn't have taken up. Times moved on. You've got to move with it.
They have.
And the tricky bit for farmers is that people expect cheap food. In the times you're going back to, reminiscing on, there was time when there was a lot of food would have been bought directly from farmers. You would have known a farmer who's going to slaughter a pig and
sort me out a cauliflower
and all that sort of thing. And we look back on it with very rose-tinted spectacles.
It was.
But nowadays you've got to confront reality, and if we're going to produce food, it's got to be very high quality. That someone's going to get a check up on it. We used to export a lot of potatoes and a lot of cauliflower and all sorts of different crops. Now with international competition, so a lot of those crops have gone, but we're still completely well known for our Jersey cow and our Island home and Jersey Royal potatoes. And I don't huff and puff. We are. And if you listen to the speakers, the way we're talking about, you know, there are people that would bend over backwards to have the brand identity that we've got here now. And as Kirsten Morrow was saying, this is something that's really important for in terms of how government works, especially, who's going to go off around the world and go and sell financial services? Well, there's some bright people who do it.
Yeah, but the farming...
What do they put up? They put pictures of cows and potatoes up.
They always do, because it's cliche, that's why.
Yes.
They don't let us into the finance centre and see all these interesting people.
Well, all right, we're not going to have a debate about that, because I'm not... But what I'm going to tell you is that I'm giving you clear examples that this is about public goods. Now, that's an anathema to you, no doubt.
Well, not necessarily.
But it's always been done, though. We've always provided public goods. Years ago, they weren't identified so much, and it was just part of our way of life. But nowadays, public goods are something that people value, and
Indeed.
You're going to hear later this afternoon the means of at long last actually valuing that for individual farmers, and we can work side by side. There's a marketplace there for all our products, our branded products. It's a very competitive one, but we're adding value to it by getting our carbon footprint properly assessed and all those sort of things, rather than being told to do that. Right. And then alongside that, there are the public goods. You know, come on.
I mean, the sun is
shining.
It looks lovely. It looks lovely.
It always looks lovely. But why?
The argument is about this backdrop. They want to keep this rural backdrop, and
it's always been there.
Well, in a manner of speaking, it has. But I was speaking to one of your colleagues. Which Lemaitre it is, I don't know, because they look the most I never know which one I'm talking to.
Yeah,
and he was saying there's no problem recruiting staff. We can get them from the Philippines.
Yeah.
There's no problem housing them. We've got housing accommodation.
Yeah.
He said the problem is paying them the living wage.
The minimum wage, yeah.
Right. So I said, well, why don't the government, instead of giving the farmers money, why don't they put £1,000 up to come to Jersey? We'll give you £1,000 cash in your hand to come and work here for a year or 9 months or 18 months, whatever they're allowed under their permit. Well, why not give it direct to the employee? Well, where are they today? Where are they? Where are the farm workers at this conference?
Well, no.
Hey,
my farm manager who helps me on the farm, he's here today. We've got the other three people who are working on my farm. One of them, two of them are Portuguese, and one of them is a Polish person. They're fantastic people.
Are they resident now, or are they still on temporary?
No, they three of them are resident,
right? Because
they've been here a very long time,
right?
So you know, you can't generalise in this.
Well,
now.
You try to, but they.
Well, you do, but I don't.
Well,
because it's so few of us. You talk about the times when there were literally thousands of farmers. Now there are less than 40, of very different sizes, and this is a different comparison. You've got to move. There's a marketplace to supply with competitive, well-priced products, and then there are public goods, and we are going to be rewarded for those public goods, and we are going to. For instance, I employ 5 people, and only one of them is on the minimum wage. And the majority of my staff, I provide a good accommodation rent-free.
All right.
I'm going to say that again.
No, good, rent-free, good, right. I've got it.
Okay. They don't need £1,000 from the taxpayer.
Well, the farmers are asking for money to supplement them. I was saying...
No, but we're asking for the money, and it's and it's all based on the public goods.
Well, that's what they're basing the argument on. We're doing good, we want to be rewarded from public funds. But instead of, you may be right, but the money ought to go to the guys who are doing the work, recruited from the Philippines or Poland or wherever they're going to be next.
Well, you can't give them, we give them good money because and the minimum wage is going up substantially, so we're going to attract more of these people. They need to be trained and everything else.
Right.
But we want to run a profitable farm, a viable farm,
right,
that we can pay our staff a good wage. As I say, I've employed 5 people, only one of them is on minimum wage,
right,
and he's got free accommodation, which means he's
right,
on the living wage.
Absolutely.
And that's commonplace throughout the dairy industry.
Right.
So these people they've got a choice. If they don't, and they make a choice to come to Jersey, and we're attracting a lot of people from overseas countries now, in hospitality and in farming, and they want to come here and work.
As you referred to it, there was 1,000 farms after the war.
Yeah.
And it's now down to, you were talking about 13 dairy farms. And it's pretty obvious where it's going to go, isn't it? It's going to go unless something fairly substantial and radical happens to dairy farming, because obviously won't have the people to do it, they won't have the skills.
Yes, we've got the people to do it.
You reckon you have?
Yes.
Your managers, the team you've got now, are they capable of carrying on after you retired to the Bahamas?
Well, I'm not going to retire yet because we're all pretty resilient guys. But I'm very, very fortunate. My wife helps me fund very significantly on the farm. But when we popped our clogs, I'm hoping, I certainly hope that the farm would be managed by someone else.
I mean, how about other crops? And what do you think about growing cannabis? I mean, that to me is...
well, let's get cannabis in completely the right context. Cannabis growing and production in this island is a pharmaceutical activity. Yeah. It's not a farming activity.
Well, this is what I think. I don't think it is farming. It shouldn't come under the farming umbrella at all.
Well, it doesn't. But
it's taking use of land, and that's why I say this ought to be a use of land conference.
It's a very, very, very small amount.
But they're talking about,
huge,
this is going to be the future for Jersey. The millions.
They did that last year, but they're not saying it this year.
Well, I've noticed that man who was very
articulate last year, and he's not here.
He's not here. I do wonder what's happening here.
So I think things are happening on that, but that's not going to be. It was portrayed as a saviour for agriculture.
Do you diversify on your farm with crops? Or do you do anything?
Well, certainly diversifying crops. We've grown these lupins this year to grow proteins, and we've done some other things. Come on, you need an ice cream.
Oh, ice cream!
Yeah, come on.
Are you made on
that thing off now?
Are they made on your farm?
Yeah, I'm going to.
Go on then.
Thank you.
I will do his own talking.